What's up, guys? I'm Uncle Freedom, coming to you on a glorious and well-deserved day off. How's it going? First things first, go ahead and like, subscribe, share, tell a friend. After all, YouTube is censoring firearms content at an alarming rate. So much so to the point they are now deleting videos of people like Jeff Gerwich at Modern Tactical Shooting. I am losing over half of the appeals I put out, so there are a lot of videos that are only going to show up on Patreon. For those of you guys that have been at Patreon for this entire time, a lot of what it's been is a chat network. For the most part, there hasn't been a lot of stuff posted over there because a lot of it could go over here, and most of the guys there were just supporting what I did or enjoying the fact that I answer the phone at like midnight. However, I'm going to start posting a lot more stuff over there. I just, it's really getting hard to do this. A lot of people don't look at it this way, but doing YouTube and the way I do it at my level, it is a business at some point, right? Like, we spend money to do what we're doing, to create the stuff that we create for you guys. And that stuff costs money. And if we start losing the ability to make money on it, you won't see a lot of stuff from a lot of people. It's very frustrating. So go find somebody else that you find informative and like and subscribe and follow them and tell them Uncle Freedom sent you, and just help support it, right? All the good voices we can get in the Second Amendment world, the more voices we need. So, guys, Volume 3 of the Terminal Effect. This is going to be a handgun, keeping in the vein of one rifle, one handgun cartridge. Today, we're going to talk about the ultra-powerful semi-automatic Magnum handgun caliber, and that is the 10mm auto. The 10mm auto, compared to something like the 9mm. 10mm looks like a giant, chunky, powerful thing. The man's 40 cal, right? But it wasn't always that way. So let's talk about this. 10mm auto, fascinating round. You're going to learn a lot of cool stuff today. So Colonel Jeff Cooper loved the 1911. For those of you who don't know Colonel Jeff Cooper, that is the founder of Gunsight. Loved the 1911 and was a devotee of the Lord's caliber 45 ACP. Colonel Cooper also expressed the want to have a 200 grain projectile fired out of a handgun doing 1,200 feet per second. He envisioned this to be ideal for when pistol engagements would be necessary from 50 yards and beyond. Colonel Cooper was absolutely instrumental in the development and design of the first firearm chambered for the new 10mm cartridge, and that was the Dornhaus and Dixon Bren 10. Now, the Bren 10 was a really, really cool handgun. The Bren 10 was based off of the CZ75, but it was an incredibly beefed up version of that guy, and it was solely designed around firing the new ultra-powerful 10mm auto cartridge. It was released in 1983 with the first factory availability of ammo that we could find being released by the Norma Ammo Company out of Sweden. Now, the original load for the 10mm auto was kind of a thing of beauty. The original load for the 10mm auto as it sat was a 200 grain truncated cone projectile, which means not a round tip. It goes up angled and it's flat on top, right? A 200 grain truncated cone moving at 1,200 feet per second, producing 635 foot-pounds of energy, which was double the energy of the venerable 45 ACP. We're talking a massive upgrade. But it was operating at a pretty high pressure. It had a standard operating pressure of 37,500 psi with a max peak pressure of 44,400 psi. That's hot, man. That's a smoking round. So the actual NATO operating pressure for 9mm, the NATO ceiling is 42,000 psi. That's how we get things like a 9mm 115 doing 1,390 feet per second. It's smoking. But we're talking about hot rounds, right? 10mm was a stud out of the gate from the word go. It was supposed to be, and it was everything that Colonel Jeff Cooper had envisioned. Now, there's a lot to this story, and the more we go into this story, 40 cal is going to make an appearance, but I'm going to do a dedicated 40 cal video because it's way too fascinating to try to cover in this one. So if we enter the Miami shootout, right? We covered this a little bit in the 9mm video. April 11th, 1986, Miami shootout against two bank robbers. And the FBI lost. And it was mainly attributed to the lackluster penetration of the 115 grain Winchester silver tipped ammo. When they did an autopsy of the bad guys in this, we learned something that as little as 1 additional inch of penetration would have actually turned fatal a lot faster and probably resulted in the lives being saved of the slain agents. So yeah, your wife will agree with me. That extra 1 inch counts. Okay. Sorry for those guys in the room that are just like, damn it. Like, it's a thing, right? So that extra inch mattered. Mattered then, it matters now. An extra inch of penetration is oh so important. The FBI declared that the 9mm projectile itself and its handguns were insufficient for terminal effect and began the search for a new standard issue cartridge. And they settled on the 10mm. So this all sounds really amazing, right? Hot rodded pistol cartridge and a submachine gun round. Yes, there is an MP5 chambered in 10mm, the MP10, really cool. This is a semi-auto pistol round that is legit a Magnum handgun round that cycles and functions in a semi-auto pistol and in submachine guns. This is incredible. We have now not screwed something up as the federal government. Like, how cool is that if you really look at it? But it's the government. So what do you think I'm going to tell you they did? That's right. They ruined it. They messed it up. It's what they did. In 1989, the FBI declared that the 10mm load was going to be the new load, but not the 10mm load that we initially discussed, the 10mm FBI. The new round of the FBI. You heard that, right? The 10mm FBI. During testing, when they first got these things in hand and the 10mm round was there, they discovered that the operating pressures and the recoil was really intense on a 10mm. Anybody that shot full power 10mm can tell you that, yeah, it's got a lot of recoil, right? It's a freaking Magnum round in a handgun. They found that recoil to be too much and more than they deemed that other people would do. Now, the FBI is primarily made up of lawyers and accountants and not necessarily like operational gun people like me or you. So what do you think they did? Well, they settled on a reduced loading of the venerable 10mm and basically neutered the crap out of it and called it the 10mm FBI. Yep, they ruined it. Like right out of the gate. It didn't even make it to being issued before they'd already screwed this up. The handgun that was selected to go around with this 10mm was the Smith & Wesson Model 1076, which was plagued, or so they say, with mechanical issues. Now, there was some mechanical issues that existed. There were some cases in which the slide locked closed so bad that it took the mallet of the Justice Department to open the damn thing again. But chief among those issues they had with that firearm itself was the fact that the grip was so large and the trigger reach was so long that some agents actually couldn't even handle the firearm. It wasn't a recoil thing like everybody's been led to believe. It was the fact that they couldn't actually get a proper firing grip or manipulate the firearm in any kind of a fashion that looked efficient. There were a lot of complaints as well of the just unreal weight of the 1076. Now, keep in mind, when this was all designed, the 1076 was designed around shooting a 200 grain projectile at 1,200 feet per second. That had a lot of recoil. Weight's important, right? So this was designed around the fact that it was going to be firing that, and the weight of the 1076 was 46 ounces, almost 3 pounds for this handgun. Add to that the fact that Smith & Wesson really only delivered a fraction of the firearms that was initially supposed to have, which I think was 9,000 firearms. They had only delivered a mere fraction of the promised guns, and the die was struck. When we start talking about slides coming glued into battery that have to be opened with the mallet of justice, and people can't efficiently handle and run a firearm because it's so big, and even your other guys are complaining like, dude, this thing's really heavy. And it was so heavy because we were expecting to use a cartridge that, the government didn't screw up. But the biggest issue was that watered down round. The 10mm FBI. I mean, at least they named it. At least they put their name to the fact that it was a terrible freaking decision, and they owned that decision, and, they named that abomination after themselves. They took the hot-rodded 10mm, the venerable, amazing beast mode of a cartridge that is the 10 millimeter auto, and they neutered that thing down to 180 grain projectile at 950 feet per second. They were basically using a portion of the capacity of that round itself, making it obsolete, because Smith & Wesson, noticing the fact that, hey, they're not even using the full amount we've got here, shortly after this thing was even adopted, it was already obsolete with the unveiling of the new 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge. But we'll go more into that on the next time. But fear not, though. Modern advancements have seen a resurgence of the 10 millimeter. Lots of pistols chambered in this. You can find pistol caliber carbines chambered in this. It's a fan-freaking-tastic round that has real promise as one of the most potent semi-automatic handgun rounds we can actually find. But at least we were smart enough this time to do it in all its glory. So how about some historical loads for the 10 millimeter auto itself? Probably most prominent amongst those was the two original loadings that Norma released, which was a 220 grain truncated cone full metal jacket doing 1,220 feet per second, providing 640 foot-pounds of energy. That's impressive by anybody's standard. And then there was also a jacketed hollow point variant. The 170 grain jacketed hollow point, produced by Norma as well, was traveling 1,340 feet per second, producing 680 foot-pounds of energy. That will solve most of life's problems that require a firearm to solve. That is a potent round. And then we have what the FBI actually settled on when they did this. We dropped down to 180 grain jacketed hollow point, doing a just absolutely minuscule 950 feet per second, creating 361 foot-pounds of energy. For those people that actually wonder the real difference between the two things, you can buy almost any commercial loading available of 40 caliber Smith & Wesson with 180 grain soft point or 180 grain jacketed hollow point, and you will be shooting in excess of 1,050 to 1,100 feet per second with that round. That's right. The 40 cal that's commercially available today, that everybody calls the 40 short and weak, is actually more potent than the original FBI 10 millimeter round that made everybody think the 10 mil was the most powerful handgun in the world. That's how bad the government screwed this up. So once we got outside of those, almost all advancements that have taken place within the 10 millimeter round have happened more recently. So we talked about your standard target loads, right? We're going to break this down the same way: target loads, service loads, dangerous game loads. And believe me, the 10 millimeter belongs in the dangerous game category. It's almost to the point that it's the thing you take to get into trouble. Target load. First and foremost, out of the ones that I've shot, the SMB or cellular and below 180 grain full metal jacket is doing 1,164 feet per second. Remember, I told you that the jacketed hollow point, the freaking service load that the FBI came out was 950, right? So we're looking at 180 grain full metal jacket doing 1,164. It's a pretty stout little round, but it is very accurate. It cycles reliably in firearms. And then another one that's really good, especially if you're going to do a lot of plinking, is the Federal 180 grain full metal jacket load, the American Eagle load. That's doing 1,030 feet per second. It's got far less recoil in it. It's a lot more pleasant to shoot, especially for longer range sessions. Followed up by the Blazer, but the 200 grain variant of Blazer brass, 200 grain full metal jacket doing 1,050 feet per second. That is a fantastic round. And yes, if you're doing the math, that is a 40 grain per heavier projectile moving at 1,000 feet per second more than what the FBI said. I just can't get over how bad the FBI screwed up the 10 millimeter load. Now, the other one that I could say as far as a target load would be the Underwood 180 grain full metal jacket. It is the hottest target load that I have ever been able to find for 10 mil, and it really, really closely approximates the actual recoil pattern from a service load. And that is the Underwood 180 grain full metal jacket doing 1,300 feet per second. It is by far the hottest load we've got as far as a target load rounds, but that is also one of the closest things we're ever going to see as to what the 10 millimeter was supposed to be. Remember, advancements in powder and stuff like that, it's really, really cool that we've seen this stuff to go. And this is improvements that have happened just from the early 80s. So what about a defensive load or a service load? If you were going to carry this thing in defense of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, what would you want in that firearm? Number one choice for me, and it's mainly because it's super consistent, is the Hornady Critical Duty 175 grain. Flex lock, doing 1,160 feet per second and 523 foot-pounds of energy. Yes, I am aware that that is slow for a 10mm auto, but it is a fantastic balance. It provides great penetration, amazing barrier performance. The recoil is not insane at all. It's got a very low flash signature. It is the best all-around round for defensive loading or service loads that you'll find for the 10mm. Second on there is going to be the Spear Gold Dot, but the Spear Gold Dot 200 grain, doing 1,100 feet per second and kicking out 537 foot-pounds of energy. Another great, fantastic load. After that, the Nosler 135 grain jacketed hollow point, 1,600 feet per second, because when you need to say, go away, Mach Jesus, that's how you do it, 767 foot-pounds of energy. You are going to lose penetration on this, but it is fantastic if you were, say, shoot things that only had to worry about heavy clothing. Number 4 is going to be the Punch 200, Federal Punch 200 grain jacketed hollow point, doing 1,100 feet per second at 537 foot-pounds of energy. Number 5 is going to be the Underwood Lehigh Extreme Defenders. You knew these guys were going to be on here. My favorite freaking round that is not a jacketed hollow point, because it works no matter what. We are talking about a solid copper, heavily fluted, 115 grain, non-expanding projectile, doing 1,700 feet per second at 738 foot-pounds of energy. If there was ever a way to make Colonel Cooper smile at what you've been able to make his creation do, that one's going to do it. That's pretty cool. And then number 6, I'm going to give you an extra one on this guy, and it is the Buffalo Bore Barnes bullet loaded by Buffalo Bore, the TAC XP. We're looking at a 155 grain projectile doing 1,350 feet per second with 627 foot-pounds of energy. Fantastic, right? What about dangerous game? Because honestly, if we're talking about what we're going to use, a 10mm really shines when we start talking about hunting, game, and dangerous animals, right? Dangerous animal protection is a big deal. There is a reason that guides all over Alaska are carrying 10mm, and it's because of these loads I'm about to tell you about. So the dangerous game loads for the 10mm. Number 1, by far, bar none, and I mentioned this one in my 9mm thing as well, the Buffalo Bore Outdoorsman. We're talking a 220 grain hard cast truncated cone lead bullet doing 1,200 feet per second, producing 703 foot-pounds of energy. Because remember, when we start talking about dangerous game, the most important thing we can look for is penetration, because it's a lot of work to get to the center mass on a bear or a moose that's in rut. Like, you need a bullet that goes places, and that outdoorsman's going places. Hopefully, wherever you pointed it at. Number 2 for me is going to be the Underwood offering from Lehigh, yet again, because it's such a good round, the Lehigh Extreme Penetrator. There's nobody that's ever shot one of those that's not like, yeah, this thing just penetrates. Because it does. And it gives you more than that extra inch. It gives you like 3 extra people worth of inches. We're talking 1,500 feet per second with a 140 grain solid copper projectile and producing 700 foot-pounds of energy, but more importantly, penetrating like all of the gel. Like, how many gel blocks? All. Like, it's still going through them. Number 3 is another Underwood offering, but this guy's going to be something a little different, and that is the powder-coated flat-nose hard-cast lead. We are talking about a 220 grain projectile doing 1,200 feet per second, producing 704 foot-pounds of energy. Again, just going through the bear and the bear next to him. Because if there's more than one bear, save your ammo. And an honorable mention for the dangerous game is not really a dangerous game load, but instead a hunting load. And one of the better hunting loads I've ever seen when it comes to a semi-automatic handgun. That is the Federal's loading of the Swift Sirocco A-frame bullet. That is a fantastic bullet. It is an old school cool bullet, very akin to the Nosler Partition. You're talking about a bonded, penetrating, devastating game bullet. And in this case, we're talking a 200 grain bonded, doing 1,100 feet per second, producing 537 foot-pounds of energy with very consistent expansion and extremely good penetration. If I was going to pick one because I was going to hunt with it, that's the one right there. And you wouldn't be under gun if it was a dangerous game animal as well. So in conclusion, with more guns and ammo loaded like it should have been from the start, 10mm is the ultimate companion gun for the oh shit, it wants to eat me life. If you are taking a trip into the I am no longer the top of the food chain areas in North America, A 10 millimeter with a really good load like the Outdoorsman or the Extreme Penetrator or the Swift Sirocco A-frame, you will be okay. It's provided you can hit what you're aiming at, and the bear doesn't turn out to be a Cape Buffalo, okay? There are some fantastic, amazing stuff out there. We are truly only scratching the surface of 10 mil because as powders evolve and projectile technology improves, we're going to see 10 mil, I predict, going to a very, very different, more amazing place. So 10 millimeter, the Magnum semi-automatic handgun round, that is it. And that is what it should have been from the word go, not the neutered crap the FBI and the government screwed up on. So guys, I am Uncle Freedom. I hope you found this informative. Stay tuned. Next week, we have a rifle round coming up, and it is the sleeper of precision rifle rounds. It is one of the best designed freaking rounds ever made, and people sleep on it. And the ones that know. But there are a lot of people that are going to be like, huh? Trust me, it's awesome. And if you have any interest at all in shooting things far away, you should be there for it. So guys, I'll see you soon. Anyway, take care of yourself, take care of each other. And until next time, I'll see you later.